All right, we're in here. 93, 93, 93. This is Amon Asherenew from AshereNew.com. You already know who the fuck it is. We back in here. The title of this particular live stream is called, Is Maga a True Threat to Democracy? Let's find out what the numbers say. I've been speaking about Maga, a little bit more recently. Maga is an Egyptian deity, so on and so forth. But on this particular segment, let's see what the numbers say. Let's go beyond my personal opinion and let's see what the numbers reveal. Let's see what the mathematics reveal. Let's see what the alphabets reveal, so that we can go to the core essence, what's really occurring here, so that we don't get swept up into the confusion. Because we clearly see the only thing out here is confusion. So the only way for us to get to the truth is through the numbers. Because as they always say, numbers don't lie. So if numbers don't lie, let's go to the numbers. What's up, Jesse93? Right, hold on, let me put on some background music. Let me let y'all know what I'll be listening to. He's funny. You would think I would listen to conscious music, because I'll be talking about conscious stuff. Or you would think I'll be in that world, but I don't be listening to that. I'll be listening to the most demonic music that you can find. The more demonic, the better, right? But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I'm gonna put on some background. I'm not gonna be blasting it. What's up? What's up, Khalifa? Peace, peace. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. We still going through a heat wave here in Vegas, so yeah, if you see me with my shirt off, it's extremely hot. Let me see. It's 108 degrees right now, so I'm like, yeah, fuck a shirt. You know what I mean?
It's just me and my weapon. Big chops gon' fold them up, frost roll them up, no question. 4 deep in the Tahoe, 4-5 chopos, Trey games, spin through goggles.
Anyway, I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna leave that alone. That's gonna bring out a whole different energy. Let's get to the video. Let's start with the mathematics. If we break down MAGA, M-A-G-A, and we add up all of the values, M is the 13th letter, A is the first letter, G is the 7th letter, A is the first letter. So if you add 13 plus 7 plus 1 plus 1, that gives you what? 22. What's up, Becca? That gives you 22. Just like there are 22 major arcana cards in the tarot, just like there are 22 Hebrew letters in the Hebrew alphabet. So it's no coincidence there that MAGA breaks down to 22. And then if you further reduce it to a single digit, that takes you to the number 4, which is the energy of Uranus. But let's take our time with this. Because if we deal with the 22 takes us, as we know, if we study numerology, the 22 takes us to the energy of the master builder or the master architect. So if we analyze, Donald Trump and the whole MAGA movement, we clearly see that that's exactly what's going on. You can say Donald Trump is a master architect of this whole movement that just got everybody in a frenzy, especially the left. So again, we're just strictly dealing with the numbers. So the fact that people are just so afraid of him becoming in power or going back into power in 2024, and if we break down 2024, that gives us what? 8, which is a number 4 doubled, which is basically a double 22. 22 plus 22 is going to give you 8. And it would have been his second term. So if he wins, or if he even decides to run, we don't even know if he's going to actually run. But if he do, it would have been his second election. So it represents a double architect, a double master architect, right? And again, we're just strictly dealing with the numbers. Fuck people's opinions. Fuck how I feel. Fuck how anybody else's feel. This is just strictly dealing with numerology and mathematics. So if we are analyzing the numerology and the mathematics, and they are essentially letting us know everything that's been going on, why that name was even chosen in the first place. I also titled this the Kemetic Breakdown, or Crackdown, not the breakdown, the Kemetic Crackdown. The reason I also titled this the Kemetic Crackdown is because it seems as if most people who have come in the name of Kemet have essentially been shut down, right? So essentially anybody who's pushing, and I'm not saying anybody, but a lot of people who have been pushing like Kemetic science and who have essentially blew up utilizing the Egyptian symbolism or utilizing the Kemetic science, these people tend to get moved out of the way or at the bare minimum suppressed, meaning their content is probably not going to get pushed, or their movement, it's always some weird shit going on, right? Like we look at the Malachi Z. York and what happened with him. So even though he was you could say the first man to build the pyramids here in America that we could see, that's not already built from ancient times. Now all of a sudden, you could say he gets shut down. And we don't have to get into the actual case and why he pled guilty and what he was accused of. We already know that information. So we're not defending it and we're not pro or against it. Because if we're just dealing strictly with the knowledge, nobody could really question that if we take the personal lifestyle out of the picture, just like we have to do with Aleister Crowley, if we remove the man and whatever they decided to do with their personal life and we just look at the literature that they laid down, it's hard to find any fault. It's hard to find anything like, okay, well, that's wrong. Of course, people will disagree with it. Everybody's not going to agree with anything. But from a Kemetic perspective, from a Kemetic point of view, you can say that's exactly what you should have been doing if you're pushing that particular energy, which is what? Building a nation, building a society, which is exactly what we saw. So if we bring it up to date to Donald Trump, this is why they're trying to push the same energy on him as opposed to if he's like the most dangerous man that essentially they're trying to compare him to Hitler, right? But he's more dangerous than a Hitler or somebody who has caused massive harm to people. But again, let's not really focus too much on the men. Let's get back to the mathematics. Let's take it to the supreme alphabet. If we go to the supreme alphabet, Maga, M-A-G-A, Master Allah, God Allah. What does that mean, Master Allah, God Allah? Well, we know Allah is the proper name of God, because we know God is a fabrication, right? God, you can say, is an invention. You can say, no reality behind the word God, because if you go to any ancient language, they didn't use God. It was always a different name. So when we started to use the word God as the proper name for the supreme being or the divine architect or the master architect, right? You can say the master architect of the universe, we would call that energy God or Allah. So of course the word Allah has been around longer than the word God. So that's why they say the proper name for God is Allah, so which has nothing to do with the religion of Islam. It has nothing to do with what they're doing over there, with their culture, with their people. Because Islam predates the actual religion. Because Islam is a way of life. Just like the Tao or the Tao is a way of life. So we're going beyond the religion and whatever they're doing over there, because we know that they have their own problems as well. So we're not really dealing with the actual men or the people. What's up, Keenan? So Master Allah, God Allah, the Master of God and Allah. That's what we're getting at here. The Master of God, or the word or the energy of God, which you can say more so represents the demiurge. What we call God now is the demiurge. The demiurge is the master architect of the physical world. Whereas you can say Allah is a God of the spiritual world, the divine architect of the spiritual world, the divine architect of, I'm not going to call it divine, the demiurge, the architect of the physical world or the physical plane is, you can say that's what we would call God. That's what most people worship. Most people worship the creator, not of the spirit world, but the material world. How do we know this? Because these people were very materialistic. What do I mean? Why do we think churches take up whole blocks? We don't have to look too far. Why do you think churches take up whole blocks? Why do you think you have to give offerings and donations every time you go to church? Because we know church has become a business. So you can say the worship of God is more about business now, because money is always being collected whenever the word of God is being, spoken. Anytime a preacher or a priest is speaking, they're probably getting paid for that. Most of the time they're not doing it for free. They're getting paid for it, whether it's through donations or, being paid directly. So God has become a business. I literally just accidentally hit this. Just gonna leave it on. Let me turn it down. I guess that was a perfect segue, right? We know God to be a business now, right? So if God has become a business, then what is a law? Because a law represents the God or the supreme being of the spirit world. So if the supreme being of the spirit world, obviously that, of course, again, we're not talking about the actual religion, because it's the same way if you go to a masjid. They're collecting money just like the church is collecting money. So again, if we go to the origin, if we go to the source, if God or Allah is the supreme being or the master architect of the spirit world, you can say Allah has no need for money. Allah has no need for materialism. In fact, they say Allah actually gives you the materialism instead of requesting it from you or the people. So you can say a blessing from Allah. You get blessed by Allah because you really don't hold value to the same things that other people hold value to. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. If we look at Allah as the one who is abundant, the one who creates abundance, who can never run out of abundance, who can never run out of energy. You can say Allah is energy, or the force or the intelligence behind the energy. So you can say money has an intelligence. Money is not just paper printed, because that's what we look at it as. Money is not just ink, like printed on paper. Money is a living intelligence. There is a force or a mind behind money. But because we don't think of it like that, we give all the praise, you can say, to God. Hence why the world is mostly poor. See, this is essentially what I'm getting at here. Why are majority of the people poor if God is abundant? If God represents abundance and most people worship God, why are majority of the people poor? There's some disconnect here. But it's a sin to even question these things, right? It's a sin to question God, so most people don't want to ask these questions. If God is all abundant, why does God need money? And why don't majority of the people have it? Because if God is abundant, that means that there should be enough money for everyone to have. Everybody on the planet should be abundant or wealthy. If the God is as abundant as we think he or she is. But because we don't see that reality, and we have never seen that reality, that has never been a reality in the whole existence of the planet, right? Just think about it. That has never been a reality. Which is why people have become savages in pursuit of happiness. What I mean by a savage in the pursuit of happiness is people literally have to go into savage mode to accumulate a decent amount of money. Hence why I'm listening to drill music right now. That's the point I'm making when I listen to this type of music. We have to become savages to even have a decent lifestyle. This is why this type of music dominates in today's times. That's why conscious music is not number one anymore. It used to be. You can say in the beginnings of hip hop, everybody wanted to hear consciousness. We wanted to uplift ourselves. We wanted to hear the good things about who and what we are and what we are capable of. That's what people wanted to hear. So if you wasn't really speaking about anything conscious, people wasn't even taking you seriously at one time. Nowadays, if we speed it up to 2022, now that drill, you can say, is the most popular rap. If we look past the actual rappers, like, okay, these are just a bunch of drug dealers and killers and murderers, so on and so forth. But why are they that? Why do you have to become a savage? Because these people have come to the realization that this is how the world works, the material plane, not the spiritual world, the material plane, the God, aka the demiurge. This is how the demiurge works. That's why you could say a person like a Jay-Z. Why is the biggest rapper, you could say a Jay-Z, who was a what? A drug dealer. So the most popular rapper, the greatest rapper, you could say the one who reached the apex of society, started off as a drug dealer. Started off having to sell poison to his own people. And the ones you can say that actually praise God, the ones who actually took God seriously, we don't even hear about these people anymore. We don't hear about the X-Clans, right? The Rakims, the Big Daddy Kanes, the pioneers. We barely even hear these people's names anymore. And they essentially represent the foundation of the culture that we call hip hop, and we don't even mention their names. But every day, if you look on the internet, we're seeing people get shot, rappers getting killed. I think 2 rappers just died recently. A battle rapper just died recently. People are just dying literally every week. We're seeing rappers die left and right, or at least get shot, even if they survive. You're seeing gun violence. Because obviously these people have come to a realization that me getting on my knees and praying to a false God is not going to liberate me. The only way for me to liberate myself is to become a savage. This is just the minds of, you can say, the everyday. Not even the everyday people. The everyday people still believe in God. So when I say these people, or you can say the minority, the majority still believes in the God. But this minority, they don't believe in the God. Why do you think they rap about murder? That's not necessarily, say, a lifestyle that's godly. But when you live a godly lifestyle, you can say, what reward do you receive if that's how majority of the people are living anyway? Majority of the people are God-fearing. Majority of the people are religious. And that's why majority of the people are struggling. Majority of the people still believe in politics. Majority of the people think they can vote their way to a better lifestyle. If one person can't do it, somebody else can do it. This is how the majority still believes. That's why you had like 70 million people voted for like Joe Biden. What's up, Jeremiah? So majority of the people still believe in this political system. But when you listen to the rappers, are they talking about politics? Are they talking about Joe Biden? No. Are they talking about you need to go out and vote? No. What they're doing is they're taking life into their own hands. What they're doing is like, well, there is no God, like we believe. So the only way for you to actually succeed in this world is to take life into your own hands instead of getting on your knees and expecting help from a divine source, which really is not divine at all. You can say God is not a divine being. Again, going back to Maga, Master Allah, God Allah. Being a master of God and Allah, that means you are the master of the material world and the spiritual world. This is what it's saying. So not only are you the master of the demiurge, you're also the master of the spirit world. So that makes you what? The Lord of all worlds. The Lord of all worlds. So when we bring it up to speed as to, okay, well, are they really a threat? The MAGA supporters, the MAGA followers, are they truly a threat to democracy? Because if we listen to the White House, they're going to say, well, the biggest threat, or if you listen to Joe Biden, that's why he just made the speech. The biggest threat to democracy, you could say, is MAGA supporters. Now let's break down the 4, because we already understand that MAGA breaks down to 22. Then the 22 gives you the 4. The 4 takes us to the energy of either Rahu or Uranus, depending on if you're adhering to Western astrology or Vedic astrology. So the number 4 is either going to take you to Rahu, which was the demon who became immortal, or Uranus. And Uranus represents tension. Uranus represents revolution. So you see, like, oh, even the numbers let you know. So when they say, well, the MAGA supporters are the biggest threats to democracy, well, the number 4 represents a radical change. The number 4 represents a radical mind, because that's the whole energy of Uranus. Uranus rules over Aquarius, and Aquarius is the activist, the revolutionary. Aquarius is all about revolt against the system. That's why Aquarius is the 11th house. The system is the 10th house. Then once you go to the 11th house, now you're dealing with Aquarius. Now you're dealing with the revolution. So that's why that's why whenever they talk about MAGA, it's a fucking problem, because MAGA represents the revolution. And then you could say the left represents the 10th house, which is the system, which is the government, which is big business, which is corporations, which that's all they're about. So you see, one is about the 10th house of government, and the other one is about the 11th house of radicalization. So you see, all I'm doing is utilizing mathematics, and you see we're coming to the same conclusion that we're being told on the news. They're telling us the same thing. They're just using a bunch of political talk. But all I did was use mathematics and numerology, and you see we can come to the same conclusions, just without all of the fluff. So if we look at the number 4 as Rahu, which was a demon who became immortal, which had never happened before that, and we look at what Trump did, Trump, you could say, was the first president that didn't follow in line with politics. He was not a career politician like Joe Biden is. He literally came out of nowhere and became the president. Nobody expected him to win, but he did. So he, just like Rahu, was the demon that became immortal. See, Donald Trump had already been like this businessman. He had already been successful, but he made himself an immortal when he won that election in 2020. When he won the election in 2020, he became an immortal, aka Rahu. He made the journey of Rahu. That's why he calls himself the most hated man in the world, the most, they tried to impeach him 2 times. It's as if they're treating him like a demon. They're treating him like Rahu. And you see, that's very well the case. He's going to always be like the most hated man in politics. He's going to always have that title. Nobody's going to be more hated than him, because he is a Rahu. He is the demon that became immortal, who did something that nobody before him did. So you see, we can come to these same conclusions with mathematics, astrology, numerology, all of the conclusions that the world is telling us. We're coming to the same conclusions, just knowing our mathematics. What's up, Luciferian Jesus lover? So you see, it's very simple. It's very simple to come to these same conclusions without getting involved in the politics, without getting involved in the bullshit, without getting involved in the propaganda. You see, this makes us understand what's truly going on here. So the reason why it's such a threat is because it's the mathematics. It's not about the people. It's not about the person. It's about the mathematics. So we can look past all the bullshit. Numbers don't lie. We can always go to the numbers and show and prove reality. You see, I didn't have to, try to force this definition. You see, I'm just going by the regular definition of Rahu. This is the mythology of Rahu. I don't have to add to it, it's already there. Uranus, excuse me, Uranus rules over Aquarius. I don't have to make that up, that's facts. Aquarius is actually the 11th house of revolt. I don't have to make that up, that's facts. The 10th house is actually the house of big corporations and government. I don't have to make that up. So you see, I don't have to add no extras to it, it's already laid out for us. That's why our ancestors left this science for us. So you see, this is how we can utilize this in real time, in modern times, and come to conclusions that we're just not going to get from nobody else. The politicians is never going to give you the real reason. You see, we got to discover these things on our own. We have to come to these conclusions on our own. We can't expect no one else to do it for us. What is the purpose of these things playing out on the world stage? So that you can understand who and what you are. It's really that simple. For you to understand, or for us to understand who and what we are in the position we play. The position we play is, if majority of the people are struggling, worshiping God, but they hate Allah. See, that's another thing. That's a factor I didn't even go into. They hate Allah because they hate Muslims because of what happened in 9/11, which set off the 21st century. The year 2001 was the first year of the new millennium. So the first year of the new millennium, we have the attack on the Twin Towers from Muslims, from radical Muslims. See, not regular Muslims. See, think about it. Not regular Muslims, not the ones that you see every day. The radical Muslims that they call Al-Qaeda, that they call the Jihad. They consider those Muslims the radical Muslims. These are, again, it's not the Muslims that just want to live their life, that just pray 5 times a day, not just going about their business. That's not that type of Muslim. We're talking about the radical Islam. That's what they call it. They call it radical Islam. So that's, again, if we go to what's going on in Afghanistan, you can say they consider that radical Islam. The Taliban, Al-Qaeda, they consider all that radical Islam, not the regular Islam. They're just fine with regular Islam, but the radical Islam, they say that's the problem. So they became the enemies at the beginning of the 21st century, radical Islam. So now that we're 20 years in, now we're not really speaking so much. That's why we left Afghanistan. So we're not really worried about them so much now. Now we feel that the biggest threat is a domestic threat. So now the biggest threat is not the Taliban. The biggest threat is not Al-Qaeda. Now the biggest threat is Maga, which are the domestic terrorists because of January 6th. Because of January 6th, now the biggest threat is domestic. The MAGA supporters, which are fellow Americans, but they have a radical ideology. And this radical ideology fits within the context of MAGA. Again, which takes us to the number 4, which takes us to the planet Uranus. And remember, Uranus is an outer planet. You cannot visibly see Uranus with your physical eye. Uranus cannot be seen with your physical eye. It is the first invisible planet, or the first outer planet. So that's where things get very strange. Because you see, if we go to the previous planet is Saturn, which again represents the 10th house. The 10th house is Capricorn. So Saturn represents the world establishment. Saturn represents the status quo because Saturn is the heaviest planet. So that means we all feel Saturn. So Saturn is a planet, you could say, of the Democrats, because that's what they want. They want people to fall in line. They want people to be slaves. They want people to, bow down to big business and big corporations. That's all Saturn. But here comes Donald Trump with this MAGA. Here comes Donald Trump representing the energy of Uranus. That's why Donald Trump completely radicalized the whole system. Though again, this is the most hated man ever in America. In American history, you can say he's the most hated man because he took us beyond the veils of Saturn. He's the one that gave you stimulus checks. Just think about it. Every American got a fucking stimulus check under his rule. Just think about it. That ain't happened before, ever. So the first time was when he became president, because he introduced us to the forces of Uranus. So that's essentially what we are paying attention to. He took us beyond Saturn. What's up, Chief 93? So that's what we are in now. That's why the world just seems like it's just tension everywhere. Everybody's just fighting. We can't agree. It's so much uncertainty. There's so much tension in the air. That's all the energies of Uranus. So Donald Trump initiated us into Uranus. He took us beyond the veils of Saturn. That's why you see he's not pro the system. That's why he wants like, yo, I'm all about free speech. That's why he had to create his own social media platform, True Social. Uranus is the planet of technology. And that's what he did, right? He is a techno god. Who else created their own social network? So you see, it's right in our face. But if you don't have the science to back it up, then you see it goes right past you. You see, I'm not pulling too far. I'm not reaching too far. I'm just using basic definitions here. I'm just putting together the pieces. I'm connecting the dots with basic mathematics. So he took us beyond the veils of Saturn, which was the heaviest planet. Now we're not dealing with heaviness. Now we're dealing with strangeness and uncertainty. But we're also dealing with technology, technological advancement, which is what he represents, technological advancement. So that's why I said, that's why essentially everybody, everybody was allowed to get, I'm not even gonna call it free money. We were introduced like, yo, if we are really abundant, then why shouldn't everybody get a fucking check? That's all that represented. If America is truly abundant and we're like the richest country and all this extra shit, then we should be able to afford giving everybody a check, and that's exactly what we did. It's just that simple. We just did what we always could have did, but the left is not looking out for your best interest because the left wants to reintroduce you into Saturn. It's just that simple. The left wants to reintroduce you into the veils of Saturn. They want to bring you back where Maga is trying to push you forward. So we see what's going on here. So hopefully this all makes sense. And then I'm just going to go to the next video. I'm going to go to the next topic. We got plenty to talk about. So for now, I bear peace. 93, 93, 93.